guys, what's going on? We're on another edition of Panda Mike's podcast, New York Weekly's #1 podcast of 2020. And today we have one of my favorite singers of all time, the great Elia Esparza. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So before I met you and became friends, as I mentioned to you, I was a giant fan, still am. And I remember when I first saw you on The Voice. And I remember looking over at my fiance, Katie, and saying, holy cow, she's from El Paso, but we don't know who she is. And I remember following your career. I think I had followed you for about a good year and a half until we actually met.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then when I met you, I was like, she's the most delightful, nicest, amazing person in the world with a beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm super excited that now you're on my podcast. We're about to get this going. So before we all start, tell us a little bit about your music journey and how you kind of got into music.
Yeah, I've been singing my whole life. My first album was Mariah Carey's Greatest Hits. And I started taking voice lessons and piano lessons when I was around 9 or 10, continued through high school. I attended the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts. So that was kind of like a mix of, that was strictly acting, but I was also going to studios in New York City and demoing and kind of learning the world of recording because I've always been a performer. So I was definitely taking my time in like learning music and how to produce and how to songwrite and things like that. And so I lived in New York for 6 years. I went to every single open mic possible in New York. I can definitely say that. And used to perform. And I got the opportunity to be on The Voice in 2016, which is hilarious because I had auditioned probably like 4 or 5 times before.
Really?
Yeah. And for American Idol and all the shows, I had definitely never made it before that.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I got on the show. I was on Team Adam Levine,
right?
And it just completely changed my life. And I've also been on The Voice Mexico and American Idol. And it's really, that kind of catapulted into making my own music and working with people here in El Paso locally to produce and write and create music. Yeah.
Killing it. You're killing it. What I love to hear is that it took you 6 years and multiple tries until you got onto the show. How many tries would you say it took you to get on the show?
I auditioned, I think probably when I was like 16, 18, 21, and I was 23 when I got on the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you did 7 hard years of grinding.
Yeah, yeah. I never wanted to like give it up just because I didn't make it on a show. And even the last time I auditioned, I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. But they called me.
Right.
When I actually finally got on the show. So it's just crazy how everything works out when it's supposed to.
You know, us coming from a small town and you go into such a prestigious school in New York and such a big city like New York, how was that when you were kind of going from here to there?
I think I always knew that I wanted to go somewhere else, like bigger city, craziness, chaos. I love New York. I love the energy there. And it was an insane experience. And it definitely made me grow up really, really fast. And you just experience and get used to things in New York that doesn't happen anywhere else. But it taught me a lot of lessons. I was definitely not prepared, but I think I grew up in a good home with like good foundation and like I was headstrong. And so I never got into like the bad parts of New York because there are plenty of bad parts. But I definitely learned a lot of lessons, especially just becoming an adult at like 18. I know that's when you're like legally an adult, but
you're not really an adult.
You're not like really an adult. And so I was working, 3 jobs and going to school. I was working as a clown. You just learn how to hustle and how to like make things happen because you have no other choice.
Wow. But that's probably the best thing that happened because it makes a can't die attitude. Like I have to get this done. There are no excuses. We have to make it work. And then you're talking about 7 years of trying out. And you made it onto The Voice Mexico, and American Idol, so these great things. For most people, they would have given up. What encouraged you and inspired you to keep doing that?
I think I've just always had this like feeling like this is what I meant to do. And I think there's been instances or opportunities where I'm like, this can't just be a coincidence. Maybe it is, but I personally believe that like God has made this purpose for me. And even when I feel down and low and feel like, what am I even doing with my life? I still have this like, but this is what you love to do. Like, what else would I be doing situation? Like, I've tried other career paths in a sense or other things. And I'm like, yeah, it's nice. But I I know I belong like on stage, being creative, even behind the scenes, creating things is like my passion. And I just feel like I'm going to find a way in different avenues to always do that and pursue it.
It's so amazing because, you come from here, you're doing such amazing things, but a lot of times when you're facing your dreams, there's cold realities. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not as, I always tell people, don't be confused with the highlight reel and the highlight reel, REAL, of how life is, right? And that's on social media, we make it look so good. But there are many, many times you're self-doubting. Or there are many, many times you're saying, is this the peak of my career? Or should I go from there? How do you encourage yourself to continue that? Or what do you tell yourself? And what would you tell other young singers or people that are trying to do this type of industry that they would need to do to maintain that as well, and not quitting on themselves?
I mean, number one is gratitude. Like, I could sit here and be like, oh my gosh, only 1,000 people watched my video.
Right.
Or I could sit here and be like, oh my God, 1,000 people clicked, or even 50 people, 20 people. I don't care. Like, one other person than myself and my parents
right.
clicked on this video or listened to my song, or, it's like switching the mentality. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like, no one cares. Like, I could totally think that, and maybe no one cares. But the point is, like, you care about what you're doing. And especially now, it's even horrible with like social media, and kind of, we live our lives based on likes and views and, instant gratification. And I constantly try and be like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I want to, because I love it, whether the world sees it or whether no one sees it, or listens to it. It's like, because I love to do it. So I have to like remind myself of that, of like being grateful at all times. And then advice I would give to singers or anyone working on like a specific craft is like to practice, to like put in the work, because I think a lot of people see these overnight successes on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all of that. And that's great, but you don't know the process behind what it took to get there. I think it's like a 1 in a million chance that they're like some 15-year-old kid that doesn't have a lot of experience. Right. But then there's the other side of it where it's like, I feel prepared for the opportunities that come. And maybe I'm not even prepared for some that are bound to come. And again, it's like timing. Like, I was not ready at 15 or 18 or whatever age before to get on the show. And I guess at 23, that was like when I was ready. And even then, I've improved so much vocally, performance-wise, confidence-wise. Like, we were just talking about my weight loss journey. Like, I've lost like 25 pounds since. Like, it's just so many things have transformed even since that time, that I feel like, man, I wish I could go back now and go now that I'm prepared. But it was meant to be what it was meant to be.
A lot of times I think where people get confused is the timing has to work. When people say timing, it's not necessarily timing of the person and you try and do that. It's yourself. A lot of people get what they want early and they totally crash. You're not mature. You're not financially ready. You're not emotionally ready. You're not spiritually ready, right? Mm-hmm. And like you said, that journey in the last 7-8 years, you've done it. I mean, we've obviously, your singing is amazing, right? You're hitting everything. You're physically just fit, in shape. You got it all going, right? And you know how to handle what's going to come at you. Like, with fame and success, a lot of people don't realize that. And you've done that. And what I find interesting about what you said is your gratitude. Every guest we've had on the show has said gratitude, right? That reflects your attitude. Every guest on our show talks about the grind. They have to actually work. Paige Hathaway, Flex Lewis, yourself, me, it's all the same thing. It's not as easy as it looks, right? That's great. What's the next part of your career? What are you working on right now?
Well, right now I'm working on an EP of just getting a collective, cohesive sounding piece of work to release to the world. I feel like I've released a bunch of kind of like different random little songs, but it's so hard for me to like stay in a niche because I feel like I'm 7 different people at once. But I'm working with some songwriters out in Nashville, some producers out there, also some here in El Paso, Texas. I do work out of Beacon Hill Recording Studios. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always writing. I'm always working on a new song. It's just kind of dependent on when I feel like releasing a song and things like that. But working on that, growing my YouTube channel, my presence on there as well. I've kind of started more like a lifestyle channel as well to kind of just, I enjoy like sharing life basically and creating, and it's a kind of another way for me to express myself of like editing videos and stuff like that. But yeah, mostly music, and then hopefully by the end of the year moving to Nashville.
You heard that first, moving to Nashville on this show. You guys heard that. That's insane. Tell us a little bit about that excitement and that move to Nashville, because we talked about it earlier. It's like the Hollywood version of the country over there. Nashville, great city, great people, by the way. Tell us a little bit about why you're moving that out of there, what you're thinking about doing there.
Yeah, so well, me and my boyfriend Mark Ramos, he's a lead guitarist for a country band, Frank Ray, and they're getting some really big opportunities out there. So that's kind of one of the reasons we're going. But also, it's Music City. Like there's music everywhere. The energy is there, and I feel like it's a great balance between that city life that I love from New York, but also the country homey vibe that I feel like I also, as I'm getting older, like I want that balance of like, I want that city crazy chaos, but I also want the calming, serene stuff too. Especially like when I want to focus and like actually create and get down to it. But we're so excited. I mean, there's so much happening out there that I'm really excited to be in a new city, new opportunities. It's so weird because I'm such a consistent person with like my routine and stuff, but I love change. Like I love the idea of like starting fresh and still having like my grown in routines and everything, but like meeting new people and going new places and things like that. I'm really excited.
I love it. The excitement is there, you know. When you talk about your music and you different genres, I mean, obviously we've heard you speak, sing beautifully. You know, Selena, we've heard you sing beautifully in all these different genres. What is your favorite genre, and how do you pick it, based on where you're trying to shoot out for your next album?
Well, it's so hard because, I love to listen to a lot of genres, and I love the divas like Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey. Like, I love that music, but I would want to bring elements of those older songs into a newer generation. I feel like a lot of the music now is not, I don't want to say it's not singing, but it's not as musical as it was before.
When they're like, yeah, definitely not as musical as before.
No shade to anyone, but I feel like I miss those like big vocals and the real instruments, and still incorporating, the newer genres and the newer styles. But I love those classic elements, and I want to bring that into a newer setting.
Amazing. So, yeah. That's amazing. I think that's great because you know what you want and you're going from there. What would be a piece of advice that you would sit there and tell someone who is trying to continue to grow their brands and they're looking at other brands, like you mentioned, lifestyle? How would you tell them that they can still be themselves while still incorporating new parts of themselves?
I feel like a lot of the things that people are influenced now, like everyone's influenced by everyone, right? Everyone's kind of copying a certain trend or vibe or brand. And I feel like what is kind of cycle in new is to just completely be yourself. Like, no, I don't know. This could just be me. Obviously, it's still aesthetically pleasing, but I find myself wanting to just be more raw, more real, throw up, photo dump situation,
right.
And kind of show that more real moments of life as opposed to super curated, color coordinated, everything scheduled for the next month type of, I'm thinking specifically Instagram, but my advice would just to honestly like be yourself, because I find myself, if I'm like, oh, I want a photo just like that influencer, just like that person, like, and I try and then it doesn't feel natural. So I feel like if you're trying to grow your brand, just do what feels natural, and it's okay to change it up. I feel like now for me, I've just started saying like, I am my niche. Like I am my own niche. I'm not trying to be like, I'm only a singer. I'm only this. I'm only that, because I like a lot of things. And I know a lot of people have a lot of interests, so I don't like to base my style off of, I only wear neutrals, or like I only wear, certain things that I feel like we as a society started to just be like, if I want to be an influencer, I need to dress like this, or if I want to be a business entrepreneur, I need to look and act like this. Like, I think now it's it's just like, just be you.
Right. Authenticity is key, and people see through it eventually.
Yeah.
It's like one of the things you can kind of go and
you
it
can't
just doesn't
keep
work
up
through.
with it. Yeah.
No, it's impossible. It's almost like, what was my live from yesterday's post? I got to figure out going from there. It's extremely insane to me. You know, you mentioned a little bit about Beacon Hill Studios. Great guys over there.
Yeah.
You did some, pretty big things over there. Tell us a little about working with them and what you're doing on that side.
I mean, they're so great because, I mean, they're here, they're from El Paso, and they've gotten to work with some really big artists, which is awesome. And I've worked with people in New York and studios and engineers, producers in LA, in Nashville. And what I'm starting to find is, like, it doesn't matter what city you're in. If you're talented, you're talented.
Right.
You can still get a lot done, and they're great. I trust Orlando Gomez, who's the engineer at Beacon, with all my vocals. He just knows my voice. And so it's been great to, like, form that relationship with him because he just knows. It's kind of hard to explain, but, like,
right.
He knows, like, oh, this is what her voice needs when he's mixing the music, or he's honest with me. And so that's great. And I like when people tell me, like, hey, I think you should do this, or, like, that wasn't that great, or let's do another take. I just prefer that than anything.
Right, because it helps. I mean,
a
lot of people are unable to take constructive criticism because it hurts their feelings, but your feelings don't make you grow and your feelings don't make you money.
Yeah.
Right? They're not trying to get you out there. What happens, what you're trying to do. And I love that about you. And I love that you're working with Orlando and doing those great things. Great guy out there. One last question for you. If there's anything else that you wanted to tell the world that no one really kind of knew about you, what would that quick story be?
Oh, man. I don't know. That no one knows about me?
Or I mean, something that's different. That's not typical of what they see on social media, right? Things that you're maybe really great at, things that you like to do.
I mean, I used to be a clown.
A clown. Can you juggle?
No, I cannot juggle.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God,
I can't
no.
juggle either.
But I can face paint.
Hey, that's dope.
Yeah, I worked as a clown in New York for 4 years, and it was hard. It was a lot of fun, but we would go from parties to, like, Long Island City to Brooklyn to the Bronx I probably did, like, over 1,000 parties.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was another, I mean, that taught me a lot of lessons too, but not a lot of people would be like, oh, she worked as a clown, but you really rough it out as a clown. We would do, like, 7 parties in a day.
Be nice to your clowns.
Yeah. Be nice and tip them.
And tipping is very important.
Yeah. And so that taught me a lot on how to talk to people, how to approach people, especially when talking about money.
Right.
Which helps a lot now because I don't have a manager or, like, a whole thing, especially when I'm figuring out gigs and rates. And even as an influencer, when I'm negotiating with businesses, I'm just like, this is it.
That's it.
And I feel like a lot of people are hesitant to talk about money or their rates or what they feel like they deserve to be paid. And as a clown, I'd have to go to, like, some scary people and be like, hey, can you pay me? And you, like, literally, like, in a crack house and they have a gun. So you're like, okay, well. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people know that I went to an acting school.
Right.
Like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And that's weird. That's amazing. And a prestigious acting school, by the way.
Yeah.
Just amazing. I love that. You really have that hustle and grind and showing that. Now you are singing every weekend.
Yes.
Right? Tell them where you're singing at.
So I'm at Hotel Paso del Norte
Hey.
every Friday and Saturday, 8 to 11. And then I'm also at 1922 on Fridays, 5 to 7.
There we go, you guys.
Yes.
Check it out. And give us your social media handles and your YouTube channels.
Yes, it's Elia Esparza Music across all boards.
Check her out.
Yes.
Great singer, extremely talented. Elia, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your great stories, your clown stories especially. I love that. And for Panonomics, New York Weekly's #1 podcast, for David Chanel Esparza, thank you guys. Good night.